What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin' Bats. It's 2025. We are back. This year is going to be absolutely incredible. Had a week or so off for the holidays with Christmas, traveled to Cincinnati with Elizabeth's family, and then New Year's. And now we're back, and Flippin' Bats is ready to thrive. A lot has happened. We're going to talk today about top bold predictions for 2025. I always love bold predictions because inevitably one or two of these end up being right every single year I do this. They are bold, they are wild, and one or two always end up being correct. So I'll do top bold predictions for 2025. I have five of those. We'll do updates on Roki Sasaki, Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso, my brother, Justin Verlander. We'll talk all about those guys, what I'm hearing, what I'm thinking with those guys. And then top five most frustrating teams for not doing anything yet. We'll do that at the end. But I am pumped to be back, get things back rolling. Flippin' Bats is going to have a huge year. 2025 is the year of Flippin' Bats. Appreciate you all for listening and watching as always. So please make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Every episode also you can watch on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod there, and we're on all socials. But I am pumped and excited for this year. We're just about 40 days away from pitchers and catchers reporting, so things are happening. Things are happening quick. Things are happening fast, and I'm pumped for it. As always, Flippin' Bats is presented by Go Sleeve, best recovery tool on the market. Here it is, kinesiology tape inside of the compression sleeve. It really is the real deal. So gosleeves.com/Verlander to check that out. All right, let's start. Let's just get right into it. Top bold predictions for 2025. Now, these are in no particular order. These aren't like five's less likely to happen than number one. There's just five of them. And it's my top bold predictions for 2025. First one, let's start with the Boston Red Sox. First bold prediction for 2025, the Boston Red Sox will win the AL East. Now, why do I say that? Well, rotation-wise, got two big additions. Garrett Crochet, who's going to punch out over 200 guys this year. Dominant pitcher last year. First year as a starter under his belt. Learned how to do it. Learned how to preserve himself for the long haul. Yeah, Garrett Crochet and Walker Buehler to a rotation that I think started off really good last year with the guys they have, Brian Bayo and Tanner Houck, and those guys. Add Crochet and Buehler to that rotation. Next thing you know, they got a pretty good rotation going on there. And then Jarren Duran and Rafi Devers in the lineup. I still think they add a piece, whether that is an Alex Bregman type player. I still don't think they're done offensively. They still do need some depth in that lineup. But with their additions so far, I really like them. Then let's talk the other teams. Let's talk New York Yankees. The Yankees can't replace Juan Soto. You cannot replace Juan Soto in the lineup. So, yes, I know they've added Cody Bellinger and Paul Goldschmidt. I still don't believe, as of right now, that their lineup is as good as it was last year due to not having Soto there, with Soto and Aaron Judge hitting back-to-back in the lineup. That production is not replaced, and I don't think it's replaceable. Other than that, their rotation, adding Max Fried. Max Fried is a Cy Young caliber pitcher, but there are and have been health concerns and health issues. Will he make it through the long haul of a season? So the Yankees have question marks, in my opinion, a lot of them. Offensively, pitching wise, there's health concerns. Obviously, a rotation with Garrett Cole, Max Fried, and Carlos Rodon is good, but two of those three names, Garrett Cole missed time last year. So all these guys do have health concerns coming along with them. So I do have my concerns with the rotation, though it can be and will be, when they're all healthy, very good. And Juan Soto, you just can't replace that. So that's from the Yankees' perspective. The Orioles, I've been high on the Orioles for years. Since Adley Rutschman got called up, I've been high on the Orioles, saying this team will be legit. Add to this team. Add to this team. Add. And they just don't. And they just haven't. And they haven't done what I would like to see them do. Do I think they're a good team? Yes. But from July on in 2024, last year, from the month of July on, the Baltimore Orioles went 38-40. That's below 500. First month of the year, one of, if not the best team in baseball. Month after that, pretty good team. Month after that, about 500. And it just kept going downhill, downhill, and downhill. And then they got to the playoffs and once again, just did not look good and could not win ball games in the playoffs. So I'm frustrated by the Baltimore Orioles front office because you have this young core in place, but you've needed to add around it. And yes, they did get Corbin Burnes and they did trade for him. But Corbin Burnes ain't signing back there. Corbin Burnes is now in Arizona, signed with the Diamondbacks. So how do you replace that? Well, you haven't yet, and you're running out of top line pitchers to replace him with. Do you go? I haven't heard. We're going to give Roki Sasaki updates, but I haven't heard a lot in the Orioles front to get Roki Sasaki. Do you go get Justin Verlander? Is that enough for their rotation? It is a veteran arm to add. I don't know, but they're running out of time to go get top of the rotation guys, and then they're just running back the same team minus an ace of the staff. Yes, I understand Grayson Rodriguez will be healthy, but I still have my concerns with what this team has done. You lost Anthony Santander. Man. So that's the Orioles. Second half last year with Corbin Burnes, with Anthony Santander, who had over an 800 OPS, over 40 homers, under 500 last year and couldn't win in the playoffs. As of right now, the Baltimore Orioles are worse than they were in the second half of last year where they went under 500. So I need to see improvement there with this team. Look, all of this to say, I think the Boston Red Sox can win the AL East with their additions. And we'll see. First bold prediction for 2025 is the Boston Red Sox win the AL East. Let's stick in the AL East. Next up, the Toronto Blue Jays. Both Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr. will be traded during the 2025 season. I think they're both due for paydays. We've heard both of their names come up in trade conversations. I think if you look around the AL East, are you just going to continue to try and force a square into a round hole? It ain't working. This core that you wanted isn't working. Vladdy had a great year last year and he didn't make the playoffs. I know Bo was hurt, but when he was healthy, he wasn't great. So I think at some point, the Toronto Blue Jays look in the mirror during 2025 and say, once again, it's the trade deadline. It's the All-Star break, and we're right around a 500 team. We're 8 games out of the division already. I think we need to trade our pieces and reload and reset. And I think both Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr. will be traded. I'm almost certain one of them is traded. Bold prediction, both are traded. That's number 2. Number 3, I am going to go with the Oakland Athletics. The Oakland Athletics will finish 2025 as a 500 or better baseball team. Hear me out. You look around the field. What'd they have? Also, it's not Oakland. Sorry. The Athletics. The Athletics. There's no name. There's no city attached to them. The Athletics will finish 500 or better. You have Brent Rooker, absolute stud. Lawrence Butler in his 74 games last year had an OPS over 900. Lawrence Butler, Brent Rooker, Mason Miller in the back end of the bullpen. You finally see them add to the rotation. Luis Severino added. Largest contract in A's history. Luis Severino, you add him to a rotation. This is a team, I mentioned the Orioles last year, 38-40 from July on. Well, the Athletics were 39-37 from July on. Over a 500 baseball team for almost half the year. So I know they've been the laughing stock of the league, and people will just assume that's going to be a bad baseball team again. But the A's were a team you didn't want to run into at the end of the year last year if you were trying to get into the playoffs. The A's were a dang good baseball team from July on. I think they've added some pieces that will be valuable to them. And some of these young guys are going to continue to get better and better and better. So watch out for the A's. The A's will finish 500 or better in 2025. Next up, number 4 for me in bold predictions for this coming year. The Houston Astros will win the American League and Christian Walker will finish as an MVP finalist. I love the addition of Christian Walker. I'm also not as high on teams around the American League. I don't think the Yankees, as we sit right now, are as good as they were last year. I also didn't think they were the best team in the American League heading into the playoffs, but the path they ended up getting ended up needing to beat the AL Central to get to the World Series, and hats off to them. They did that. They did what they needed to do. They got to the World Series and then got exposed in the World Series. I don't think they're as good as they were last year right now. So are the Yankees the cream of the crop in the American League? Is it the Orioles? It's certainly not the Orioles right now, in my opinion. Although I have the Red Sox winning the AL East, I don't think they're World Series caliber talent right now. Does it come from the AL Central? I've been disappointed with the entire AL Central in terms of what they've done this offseason. Every team in the AL Central, besides the White Sox, improved last year and showed that they were a good baseball team. Royals, Guardians, Tigers, Twins, all good teams, and all have just stood back this offseason and said, nah, we're good. We're fine. So does the World Series team in the American League come out of the AL Central? I don't think so. And I still think the Astros are the best team in the AL West. I know you lose Kyle Tucker. That's a huge, huge loss for the Astros. But the addition of Isaac Paredes, who's going to be over there at third base and pulling balls down to the Crawford boxes, I think he could hit you 30 plus. Then you have Christian Walker over at first base, going to play a Gold Glove first base. The Astros have been without a stud first baseman for a long time. I mean, unless we're considering Yuli Gurriel a stud, I mean, throughout this entirety of the Astros' run of dominance, which I would say ended last year, they can pick it back up, but they're no longer inevitable. Unless we're considering Yuli Gurriel a stud over at first base, the Astros haven't had a stud at first base throughout this entire run. Yuli Gurriel, and then you sign Jose Abreu. That failed miserably. That just did not work. And then, last year you're running some form of Jose Abreu, John Singleton, just mix and matching over there. And now you get Christian Walker, who's a superstar. I think he's one of the most underrated players in baseball. I think he's going to finish as an AL MVP finalist this year. And I think the Astros will win the American League. And that is my bold prediction for 2025. Lastly, number 5 for me, bold prediction, Shohei Ohtani will win his 3rd consecutive MVP award. And you might say, Ben, that's not that bold. But I would argue it is. There's only been one player to ever win 3 MVPs in a row. That comes from Barry Bonds, who did it 4 years in a row. 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. MVP winner every year, Barry Bonds. Shohei Ohtani could become the 2nd player to ever win 3 in a row and the 2nd player to ever win 4 MVPs behind Barry Bonds with his 7. So, do I think he goes 40-40 again in 2025? Do I think he goes 50-50 in 2025? I don't, because he's back on the mound. But that's where Shohei's dominance really comes into play, is that he's a two-way guy. And in 2024, he wasn't even doing that. And he still won the MVP award, the first ever as a designated hitter. Now in 2025, we get to see Shohei Ohtani back on the mound. Can we expect the dominance on the mound over the course of the entire year? Maybe not. It's his 2nd elbow surgery. Let's temper expectations there. But if this guy goes out and hits 50 homers and steals 20 plus bases and pitches with a 4 ERA, which is, I think, high. I think he does better than that, but that's me tempering my expectations. There's not a world in which he's not the MVP. And that is historic territory. He's already in historic territory, winning 3 MVPs. With Mike Trout's in that, Barry Bonds, but now we're talking even more historic if he gets to 4, and if he gets his 3rd consecutive, then it's Shohei Ohtani and Barry Bonds. And what's the difference in those guys? Well, one of them was, using performance-enhancing drugs, and the other isn't. And I consider Barry Bonds the greatest hitter of all time. And Shohei Ohtani would be in that category. So that's my bold prediction for 2025 with Shohei, is that he will win his third consecutive MVP award. And I want to keep stressing that because I think people will say, Ben, that's not that bold. This is what I don't want to happen. I don't want us to fall in this rut that I feel like fans of sports fall into when you're watching one of the greatest talents of all time in his prime. I don't want it to become a foregone conclusion that Shohei Ohtani is going to win an MVP award. There's only been one other player to ever win 4 and win 3 consecutively, and that's Barry Bonds. So we are watching, in my opinion, the greatest baseball player of all time in his prime do his thing. And I don't ever want to take a step back and think, well, what can he do to top what he did? If he doesn't go 50-50 in 2025 with a sub-3 ERA, it was a failure of a year. No. We've never seen an athlete do what Shohei Ohtani is doing. He's the greatest baseball player that I have ever seen with my own 2 eyes, and I think he's ultimately going to go down as the greatest baseball player ever. So don't get complacent with what he's doing out there. Shohei Ohtani will win his 3rd consecutive MVP and his 4th. Those are my bold predictions for 2025. The Red Sox will win the AL East. Both Bo Bichette and Vladdy Jr. will be traded. The Athletics will finish 500 or better. The Astros will win the American League, and Christian Walker will finish as an MVP finalist. And Shohei Ohtani will win his 3rd consecutive MVP award. Still some big free agents out there. Let's talk about those guys. What I'm hearing, what I'm thinking, where they might go. We're going to talk Roki Sasaki updates. We're going to talk Alex Bregman, Pete Alonso, and Justin Verlander. Let's start with Roki Sasaki, who still hasn't signed, it is currently January 3rd as I'm recording, and he has until January 23rd until his window closes. If he does not sign by January 23rd, what that means is he is going back to Japan, back to NPB. Now, he will sign, and he will not sign until after January 15th. That's his window. He's going to sign between January 15th and January 23rd because all the international signing pool bonuses reset on January 15th, and that makes him a 2025 international free agent. Just the potential to sign for as much money as possible during that time, though it will not be a lot of money. Per his agent, 20 teams initially reached out with interest. 20 teams sent recruitment videos. Some teams even sent books. He's asked teams not to bring players to their initial meetings. So no Shohei Ohtani and Yamamoto in the Dodgers meeting. No Yu Darvish and Fernando Tatis in the Padres meetings. None of the superstars from teams are allowed at the initial meetings per Roki Sasaki's request. His agent also added, because he obviously could have waited a couple of years and made $200 million more dollars than he's going to, or 300 million more. But his agent came out and said he's not coming here just to be rich or get a huge contract. He wants to be great. He wants to be one of the greatest ever. I see that now, and he's articulated it. That's why he's coming right now. He wants to be known as one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And he's coming here at this young age and foregoing $200 to $300 million to be able to do that. That's insane. Anybody listening right now? I always hear people say, take the hometown discount for guys leaving teams with Alex Bregman. Take the hometown discount. Nobody's owed that. If you were offered $5 million more to go somewhere else, to go take another job, you would do it. And now with Roki Sasaki, we're talking he could have waited a couple of years and made $200+ million more dollars, but he's not doing it because he wants to come here and be known as one of the greatest of all time. Roki Sasaki is currently back in Japan, pondering his next steps with his family, which could include, per his agent, narrowing the field, adding more meetings from teams. But those teams currently in, from what I'm hearing, the teams that are in are still the Dodgers, the Padres, the Cubs, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Rangers. those 6 teams are still all in on Roki Sasaki. Remember, the window closes January 23rd. He will not be signing within the next week. Between January 15th and January 23rd, Roki Sasaki will be making his decision. Let's talk Alex Bregman. I, for over a week now, every day have been tweeting, it's a great day for the Detroit Tigers to sign Alex Bregman. And I would ask anybody out there, why aren't the Detroit Tigers signing Alex Bregman? What is the holdup? This is the perfect fit. And this is where I get frustrated. And maybe I'm not asking anybody out there because if you're a fan of the Blue Jays or the Red Sox or the Mets or any team that's rumored to be in on Alex Bregman, you don't want him to sign with the Tigers. But as you all know, I played for the Detroit Tigers for 5 years. I will forever root for that organization. AJ Hinch is now there, a guy that I like and respect AJ Hinch very much as a manager, as a human being. And I like Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is a friend of mine. The Houston Astros are moving on from him with the trade of Isaac Paredes, and then finally the addition of Christian Walker seals the deal on Alex Bregman going back to the Houston Astros. I like Alex Bregman a lot. I like the Detroit Tigers a lot. I like AJ Hinch a lot. And it's a perfect fit. And I don't know why it's not happening yet. I get negotiations are ongoing. I'm hearing good things. I know Ken Rosenthal came out and said he doesn't think it's likely that he goes to the Tigers. But if you listen to that whole thing, he says that because he just doesn't trust the front office and Chris Ilitch and Scott Harris to open up the checkbooks and pay. And I can't disagree with that. The track record since Scott Harris took over does not say that he's going to spend. The largest contract he's spent on is like $24 million. I think the Tigers are snake bitten by the Javi Baez contract. But that's life. That's sports. That's baseball. Look in the mirror right now and say, you know what? This team has turned a corner. We have the best pitcher in baseball. We have a young playoff team. We have AJ Hinch as a manager who's comfortable with Alex Bregman. We need a third baseman. We need a veteran. We need a guy that can produce in the playoffs. Alex Bregman is all of those. The Tigers are still in on Alex Bregman. I am hearing things that make me cautiously optimistic. That conversations are continuing, that they are working to try and get a deal done. I am also hearing the same thing with the Blue Jays and the Red Sox to a degree are still in on Alex Bregman. I think Alex Bregman is going to one of 3 teams. I think he's going to the Tigers, the Blue Jays, or the Red Sox. I'm hopeful it's the Tigers. I'm hearing things that make me cautiously optimistic. But that's the nature of the offseason. Who knows what will happen? But that's the Alex Bregman update. I think teams have narrowed. I think those are the 3 teams that he could end up at. Next up, Pete Alonso. Still out there. Former Met, current free agent. You heard early on a couple weeks ago in the offseason that the market for Pete Alonso really was non-existent. There really weren't. There really was no market. He was asking for something that he wasn't going to get. Really, nobody was reaching out and talking to him, which I think plays into the Mets' hand, right? The longer the offseason goes, and the less interest is out there for Pete Alonso, which there are teams that has changed, right? There are more teams involved now, obviously with Christian Walker signing and Juan Soto signing and all the big time names out there starting to take shape. Pete Alonso's market is also starting to take shape here. With the Mets, I would still say right now the Mets are the leading candidate to sign Pete Alonso. I think he's going to end up there, but they're not close. There's a large gap from what I'm hearing between Pete Alonso and the New York Mets. Number of years seems to be the big problem, but there's a money gap as well. And the reason for that, and because you don't often hear money is holding it up with Steve Cohen at the helm, but the reason for that is David Stearns doesn't like doing long-term deals really, unless he loves young guys. He doesn't like doing long-term deals for pitchers, and same with position players in their 30s, and that's Pete Alonso. So what I think might end up happening is a short-term deal with a higher AAV. What I'm hearing out there and what I'm hearing could be offered and has been offered is 3 years, $90 million. Pete Alonso's not taking that, but that would be the highest AAV ever for a first baseman by a good amount. So is Pete Alonso this like end all be all player? No. But I think he's a really, really good Major League Baseball player. When we're talking most home runs in baseball since 2019, pre-COVID, that's 5-6 years. Aaron Judge is number one. Pete Alonso's number two. And that's followed by Kyle Schwarber, Matt Olson, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto. This is power and production at the major league level that is extremely rare to find. That's Pete Alonso. That's what he adds to a team. So if I'm the Mets, you add Juan Soto to a lineup, you have Francisco Lindor. I think the Mets lineup needs Pete Alonso. Now, you could figure out a different direction if you don't end up signing him. You could move Vientos over to first base and then sign Alex Bregman at third base. If Pete Alonso signs elsewhere, I absolutely think the Mets are in on Alex Bregman. But there are answers to their first base situation if they don't sign him. Again, moving Vientos to first base and then Ronnie Mauricio at third, if you're going to believe in the young guys. But I think this team needs Pete Alonso and that production. Again, second most home runs in all of baseball behind Aaron Judge since 2019. So there is still a gap. There's still a gap money-wise. There's still a big gap number of years-wise. But I ultimately think Pete Alonso will end up signing with the New York Mets. There are teams that I absolutely think should sign him. Cincinnati Reds, what are we doing? There's a perfect guy right here to just hit some cheap homers in your ballpark, to hit some 500-foot homers in that ballpark. You live in an offensive guy's paradise. Pete Alonso can pop out to right field and it'll be gone there. What are we doing? I'll get to the Reds in a minute, but that seems like a good fit. There's plenty of good fits. Everybody should be in on Pete Alonso. Power and production at the major league level that is super rare to find. Next up, last of the player updates. Let's talk Justin Verlander. Let's talk my brother here. Obviously, an aging pitcher coming off of a not good year, I would say, but injury plagued all year long. Never was able to get his feet under himself and get healthy. The year before that, very good. Year before that, Cy Young. I mean, what his track record continues to speak for itself. And I do know injuries became a big part of this last year, but the updates for you, I can't, I'm obviously not going to disclose. I can't say but so much. But what I can say is Justin's feeling great. He feels really good. His arm feels really good. His body feels really good, which could not be, you couldn't say the same heading into last year, right? He ends up with those injuries in spring training, missing the start of the year, then coming back. And right when he started to pitch pretty well, gets hurt again. And then the neck injury keeps him out for the majority of the year. He tried to push it and come back for the playoffs, but there just wasn't enough time all year long. 2024 for Justin was a season of not enough time to get back to baseline where he needed to get to feel good. Well, right now he feels good. He feels great. And there are quite a few teams interested in him and signing him. He absolutely has the interest, and I'm excited to see what ultimately ends up happening. But the important thing for me, I don't care where he ends up. I just want him to be healthy heading into this season. And whoever ends up signing him, I think they're going to get a damn good pitcher. I know he's going to be 40. What am I? I'm about to turn 33. He's about to turn 42 right after I turn 33. So I know they're going to be getting a 42-year-old pitcher, but I don't care. 40 years old. He won the Cy Young Award. Last year, he was injured. He feels great. Track record speaks for itself. Coming off of his Tommy John, everyone said it's his first Tommy John. He's 40 years old. I think he's done. Well, guess what? He was the best pitcher in baseball that year and the best year of all time for a pitcher of his age. We're not that far removed from that. And by the way, last year, he was throwing great. He was throwing 97 miles an hour last year. So I'm excited for Justin to feel good. I'm excited to see where he signs. And anybody that signs him is going to get a veteran pitcher to add to a rotation that, one, will help the rotation itself, but two, will be able to help guys in that rotation and be a mentor to them. Everywhere he's gone, he's done that. At the end of his career in Detroit, with the Houston Astros, he goes there and really transforms that rotation, transforms how they think, transforms how deep they go into games. Wherever he goes, I think he will help a rotation in so many different ways. So we'll see where he ends up signing, but he's feeling great. And that's my update for you on Justin. Lastly, my friends, I was sitting there and I've been tweeting to start this year about certain teams and my frustration amongst teams, and really just started to think why I just need the next episode to talk about the top 5 teams that are most frustrating for just not doing enough. And I put together a list of 5, and then I got frustrated that there weren't more teams on here. There are going to be an honorable mention here, but in case you didn't hear it, or this segment title is too long for you, this is top 5 teams that are most frustrating for not doing enough yet this offseason. Number 5, Cincinnati Reds. I am once again going to be a believer in the Cincinnati Reds in 2025. Spoiler alert. I was high on them in 2024. I was wrong. I'll be high on them in 2025. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Well, we'll see if after 2025 it's shame on me. Every time I hear that quote, I think it was President Bush when he couldn't figure out the saying. He goes, "Fool me once, shame. Fool me, can't get fooled again." I think about that every time I say that. Anyway, number 5, Cincinnati Reds. I'm going to believe in them again. You go out and get a Hall of Fame manager, which I think is going to be huge, huge, huge for this young core. A young core that has Matt McClain back and healthy. I do feel like I got the short end of the stick in 2024 believing in the Reds because immediately they just dealt with Matt McClain getting injured and missing the year, and Noelvi Marte getting suspended, and Christian Encarnacion Strand getting injured and missing most of the year. I will own up to it. I was wrong on the Reds in 2024, but there was a lot that happened. In 2025, I'm going to run it back. Again, CES over at first base. You have Ellie De La Cruz, who will continue to take another step forward. Matt McClain, Noelvi Marte. There's a lot of talent there in the infield. I do think they should just add a bat, like I mentioned. A guy that can hit you 50 homers in that ballpark. Pete Alonso, Anthony Santander. Add one of them. What are we doing? You go get the Hall of Fame manager to add to this young core, and so far to this point, you're not doing anything? I know they traded Jonathan India for Brady Singer, but they had the depth. Like, they had too many infielders. Jonathan India needed to move. I do think they did well getting Brady Singer there. But go get an outfielder for the love of God. You have a rotation that can be very good in Hunter Green and Andrew Abbott and Lodolo. And I watched this team and I think, and now you add Terry Francona as a manager, and it's like, man, you are an outfielder. You're a stud away from this team winning the NL Central. The NL Central is winnable. I'm not talking a Jamer Candelario type piece. I'm talking about a Pete Alonso and Anthony Santander, one of those pieces. Add to the team, but we're just not doing it, and it frustrates me. And that's number 5. Number 4, and I really had to push myself to not put them higher, but in my heart they're higher. The Detroit Tigers, I have at number 4. You have the best pitcher in baseball, and Tarek Skubal. Best pitcher in baseball. Coming off his AL Cy Young year. You had a team that had no business being in the playoffs after the start of the year last year. Even come July, August, they had start of September, no business being in the playoffs. But this young team, once again in the second half, proved, you know what? We are good enough. We need some help, but we're good enough to get into the playoffs. We now have our ace. We have our superstar ace. We have a lineup that is capable of just mixing and matching and going out and scoring enough runs. Riley Green's a stud. Um, you did add Gleyber Torres, but like, is that enough? No, it's not enough. I watch this team in the playoffs and I think, man, AJ Hinch is out here literally just piecemealing together offense. Oh, you brought in a left Andy Ibanez. Here you come. Colt Keith, who I actually think Colt Keith can be an everyday good baseball player for the Detroit Tigers. But like you're just mixing and matching and trying to figure it out. Go add a star player. Go get the Alex Bregman of the world. Go get the Anthony Santander. Go get the they're not going to sign Pete Alonso. And I don't think Pete's probably not a good fit in that ballpark. But like go get somebody. I'm so tired of seeing them make the move. If Gleyber Torres is the big move for the Tigers this offseason, it's a failure. The off seasons have continued to be failures for this team. The Mark Canha signings, the Gio Urshela signings, those are fine if you also add a superstar to add into the middle of that lineup. I mean, what? God, Mike Ilitch would have added Prince Fielder and Miguel Cabrera by now. I've said it time and time again. My frustration comes because Mike Ilitch used to make the moves to make the team better, whereas Chris Ilitch waits to see the team improve to make the team better. But now it's getting even more frustrating for me because the team has improved. You do have your superstar ace. You do have a lineup that's capable of putting up enough runs that needs an offensive powerhouse in the middle of it somewhere. But it's still not getting done. It's still not pulling the trigger. And I guarantee you he's snake bitten by the contract of Javi Baez that didn't work out. That's why this is happening. But at some point, if the Detroit Tigers are going to be a perennial powerhouse like they were in the early mid 2000s, not early 2000s, mid 2000s for the better part of a decade, you're going to have to spend. And you're going to have to realize we were wrong on the Javi Baez signing. In fact, we had the option in front of us of two guys, Carlos Correa and Javi Baez, and we went the cheaper route. It was still expensive, and we were wrong there. But man, if we had gone to get Carlos Correa, we'd be in a much better position right now. But we went the cheaper route, and it didn't work out. Don't do that. Don't fall into that rut again. It's time. It's time for the Tigers to spend. The time is now. Detroit is ready to come back to the Tigers. But you can't come off of a year where you shocked the world and you had a 0.3% chance of making the playoffs, and you come back and Motown was rocking at Comerica Park. You can't come off of that year with a Cy Young Award winner and the best pitcher in baseball and a playoff team and do nothing. It will set the franchise back. It's time to move forward. It's time to spend the Little Caesars money and move forward. God, I regret putting them in number 4. Should have been number 1. Let's move on to number 3. The San Diego Padres. I have the Padres at number 3, in large part because you look around the division, and I think the Padres, the Dodgers won the World Series, and they earned that right, and they did beat the Padres, and I will say they ultimately ended up being the better team. But it was not a mismatch. In fact, the Padres should have won that series. And the Dodgers players will tell you, every single one of them, our World Series was the series against the Padres. They were the best team we played in the playoffs. So they're at number 3 because you look around this offseason and everybody in the division is doing something. The Dodgers re-sign Teoscar Hernandez to a 3-year deal. The Dodgers sign Blake Snell. The Diamondbacks sign Corbin Burns. There's a lot of big-time moves being made in the NL West, and the Padres aren't one of them. It is still early January. There is still plenty of time for the Padres to go out and sign a I don't know, Roki Sasaki. There are still players out there to sign. I don't think the Padres are going to do nothing this offseason. But to this point, if you're the Padres, you look up and say, man, we were every bit as good as the Los Angeles Dodgers last year who won the World Series. If we do what we're supposed to do in that series, we probably win the World Series. And now, halfway or more through the offseason, you look up and say, we have gotten worse and everybody around us has gotten better. It's going to be a failure of an offseason to this point if the Padres don't end up landing Roki Sasaki. They've done nothing. Everybody around them has gotten better. That's why I have the Padres here at number 3. At number 2, the Atlanta Braves. What are we doing, Braves? Same sort of thing. You look around you in that division. Phillies win the division last year. Mets go out and sign Juan Soto for $1 billion. Mets go out and sign Sean Manaea. Mets go out and continue to make moves. The Phillies haven't, I wouldn't say done a ton, but they did add, they ended up getting Jesus Luzardo, and they're going to do something. Dave Dombrowski always does. But, the Phillies would be honorable mention on this list. I'll talk about honorable mention in a second. But if you're the Braves, you look at the rest of the division, you look at your rival New York Mets adding Juan Soto, you look at the Braves who have a bunch of players in their prime. You can't look at them and say, we dealt with so many injuries last year and we're just going to be better this year because they're coming back. You get Ronald Acuna back, you get Spencer Strider. That's obviously true. They're obviously going to be a better team in 2025 than they were in 2024. But add to it. Well, it's crickets out of Atlanta right now. Add to it. Again, you've heard Justin Atlanta rumors. Will that happen? I don't know. Again, I'm not going to put teams and names out there because obviously when I say something in regards to Justin, people obviously really think that's going to happen. So I'm tempering what I say, but that has been a rumor. But do something. Braves are at number 2 for me. At number 1, the most frustrating team for not doing enough yet this offseason is the Baltimore Orioles. Year in and year out, since Adley Rutschman has come up, I have said it is time. It is time to add to this team. It is time to push and go for it. The Baltimore Orioles, as we sit right now, are a good bit worse than they were in 2024. And in 2024, they were not good enough. They could not win in the playoffs. They couldn't hit in the playoffs once again. They went 38-40, under 500 from July on. And then you lose Anthony Santander, who had over 800 OPS, hit you 44 homers. You lose that production. You lose the production of 40-plus homers, and you lose the production of your superstar ace. And what have you done? Nothing. What are we doing? This is where the frustration comes of your window is open. Your window for the Orioles to win is right now, and it has been open for a year or 2 years. I would say last year was the real beginning of that window being wide open to win. And it's still wide open. But you know what? After this offseason, that window, it's not, it shut a little bit. You have to do something. Yes, I understand the young core, but the young core, all I've heard about is this young core, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Colton Cowser, Jordan Westberg. I get it, but it ain't working. You need to add that veteran to it. And Mike Elias, I compared heavy at the beginning of this run to what he did in Houston. But what he did in Houston was when the time was right, he added to it. He added to that lineup that already had the young Jose Altuve and the young Carlos Correa and the young George Springer, those superstar young cores that were gracing the cover of Sports Illustrated. Well, he then ended up adding a Michael Brantley to that outfield, and guys through the draft ended up coming up and performing as well. But you add a Michael Brantley, you add some of these older veteran players to put in with that team, and in the rotation, Justin Verlander and Garrett Cole, and it ended up all working out well. But they're not doing that. They're not doing that. Corbin Burnes is now gone. Corbin Burnes signed in Arizona. You're not getting him back. What are you going to add in the rotation? How are you going to supplement the loss of Corbin Burnes? How are you going to supplement the loss of Anthony Santander's 44 homers? Well, you're running out of time. I would argue that production isn't out there any longer to supplement both of those. So what do? I don't know. But I've gotten so frustrated with the Orioles front office to just not do anything. We're going to lose this young core. They're not in their prime, but we're going to lose this young core. You can't re-sign all of them. You have them right now, and it's all super cheap. Go out and spend the money to add to this young core that's already really cheap. My top 5 most frustrating teams so far this offseason: 5 Reds, 4 Tigers, 3 Padres, 2 Braves, 1 Baltimore Orioles. Fun episode. Lot to discuss. We are back. First episode of 2025 means top bold predictions for 2025. We did those today. Player updates, frustrating teams, a lot to discuss today. But we're back. Recording on Friday. This one will obviously immediately come out. We'll be back next week as well. I'll continue to tweet every single day. It's a good day for Alex Bregman to sign with the Detroit Tigers. We'll see if that happens. But there's still some big-time players out there. There's still my brother out there. All those guys are going to start signing soon. We saw last year, it doesn't work when you don't sign until late spring training. So we've seen this shift this offseason. I think we're going to see more players sign in the next coming days. We'll obviously be back early next week with another Flippin' Bats because we're back, baby. It's 2025. And what is 2025? It's the year of Flippin' Bats. Let's go. Love you guys. Make sure you're following, subscribed anywhere you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Hit that subscribe or follow button. It's free to do so, and it really does help. Leave a 5-star review. Also, you can watch everything on our Flippin' Bats Pod YouTube channel. Leave a comment. I always like to hop in the comments and respond to you guys, so hop in there and follow us on all social media at Flippin' Bats Pod. But that does it for this episode, the first of 2025. Happy New Year, everyone. Baseball is right around the corner, about 40 days until pitchers and catchers report, and then it's the greatest time of year, spring training and baseball season. Happy New Year, happy holidays, everyone. We are back. Until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.